Things first, let's get the new project set up. I'll be making these project setup videos shorter and shorter now, as this should be fairly basic stuff for us. So, new project, empty views activity. I was trying to think of a funny name or pun for this app that's based off Google Tasks, and the best that I got was the Task of Zorro, but that was so awful that I couldn't bring myself to name it that. So instead I've just gone for get it done, like that. Call it what you want, it doesn't matter. Package name fine. Safe location fine, language Kotlin, minimum SDK 24, and the build files in the new Kotlin DSL, that's fine, and we can go finish. While that's building, I'm going to switch the project view to project rather than Android, and I'm going to preemptively open up the build file that is in the app folder, build.gradle.kts, while it's loading, and then just give that a few moments to finish building. Okay, that's now finished. So we're getting a warning because we should be targeting the latest version of the Android SDK, which is 34. So we'll change that and the compile SDK to 34. We can ignore the warnings. That should fix itself once we do a Gradle sync. And core KTX 1.9.0 should be fine. We'll do a quick Gradle sync. We'll head over to our theme file, so Shift. And then themes.xml. I'll open up both the one in the normal folder and just jumping to that, I'll also open up the one in the night folder. And this time we do want it to say no action bar. In the next tutorial, we'll be looking at building out our own custom toolbar in the layout file. So we don't want the system toolbar putting in. So if it's not already, please ensure that you're using a version of the theme which has no action bar. Theme.material3.daynight.noActionBar. And same for the night theme. So that looks all fine. We can go ahead and run this. Okay, and that runs fine. We have hello world, and we have no toolbar at all right now, which is exactly what we want. So nice and quick, project setup done, and we can now dive straight into some new concepts for this section. There's no action bar means that the system won't be putting a toolbar in for us. However, we do have the flexibility to add one ourselves inside the layout directly. I call this a custom toolbar. As long as you've got a theme that says .noActionBar, you can now go ahead and close the themes file. And if we head into activity_main, in this tutorial, I'm going to show you how you can build out your own toolbar in the layout code directly. So I'm going to delete the text view, and we'll leave the parent view as a constraint layout. Now, a toolbar is just a widget that can be used in Android like anything else. Inside constraint layout, if you go ahead and do an opening curly bracket and type TOOL for toolbar, and then being sure to select the Android X one, so Android X toolbar, and then we can do the usual things, so match parent, wrap content for the height, self-closing tag. We'll just constrain that to the top, so top to the top of the parent. And you can see on the right we have a blue outline for where the toolbar is. There's currently nothing in it, and in Material 3 it doesn't apply any shadow or elevation, so actually when I click away, you don't see anything at all. But the height looks very similar to what we have in our previous toolbars when we have a dark action bar theme, the system toolbar. So you can build out a toolbar yourself in code like this. Now, if you want a title, you can go ahead and as an attribute do app:title and then put in maybe the name of your app like that. So for us, that's going to be get it done. Okay. Or you can even refer to the string. So I'll do the string app name. You can set a navigation icon for the top left, so we can do something like, well, we haven't got any icons right now, so I'll just use one of our existing ones, like the foreground launcher. Okay, and you can see it puts that in the navigation icon position. So using this toolbar widget, we've got a fair bit of control to build this out exactly as if we were using the system one. In fact, we've got more control. Okay, I'll just delete the navigation icon, but I will leave the title in. Now, as well as being a custom-made component, which has things like title, navigation item, if we command click or control click on toolbar, well, we can see that it's actually a view group, a menu host and a view group. Menu host meaning that we can inflate menus into it for our toolbar menus, so we can do that. But view group means we can put other views inside it. So if I just close this down, so rather than being a self-closing tag, we can do a normal tag, and then inside here we can put things. So thinking about the Google Tasks app, well, they had like an account icon in the top right of the screen. So we can do an image view, and we'll do wrap content, wrap content. I'll just go into the resource manager and quickly create a nice icon for our account area. So resource manager, vector asset. If I search the word account, I quite like this one here that says account circle. So I'll choose the account circle, okay. And then I'll call this the icon account. So in the image view, I can do src and refer to the icon account that I've just made. And then I'll call this the, if I search the word account, I can do src and refer to the icon account that I've just made. And I can see there I've got this little account icon. But rather than placing it just next to the title, I can actually set the gravity to be wherever I want inside this toolbar. So layout gravity, we can do end. That's going to jump all the way over to the right there. I should make it a little bit larger, so I'll do 3060p for the height and width. That looks a bit better, and it needs a bit of margin, I can see. So I'll do margin to the end, something like 20 dp. That's maybe too much. We'll try 16 dp. So setting the theme to have no action bar gives you the ability to add one yourself manually in layout code. And this can be quite powerful for building bespoke layouts, things a bit additional to what the system gives you. However, we don't have the ability with the standard toolbar to change the title from being at the start. Remember, in Google Tasks it appears to be centered. So we could remove the title from there, and then we could maybe create a text view. Wrap content, and give it the text of the app name. We could do that, and then set the layout gravity to be centered. That's one way of doing it. Or we could simply switch to the material toolbar. So material toolbar, you can see there. And this gives us a few extra attributes. So now I can go back to putting the title in, title app name, and now there's a title centered attribute very usefully. And if we set that to true, well, that jumps to the center. Okay, so using the material toolbar and optionally using either the title attribute or putting our own custom text view in, we can pretty much put whatever we want inside the toolbar. And you can see already now we have a slightly smarter, more modern looking toolbar, centered app title, an account image view that we could maybe put a set on-click listener on to go into some sort of account menu. We can put pretty much anything we want in here. Okay, so you may find in your projects having no action bar in the theme and then using toolbars manually in layout code is a better way to do it. I'll just do a quick auto format, and I'll give my toolbar an ID in case we need to interact with it or put a menu into it. And I will also give the image view an ID for later on. So image account, like that. So that's how to do a custom toolbar in layout code. If we think back to the example of the Google Tasks app, well, they had the toolbar with the centered app title and the account button, but then they had a tab layout for the various view page or pages, and this was to allow multiple lists or starred items, and that appeared to be within the toolbar. Well, how would we go about putting a tab layout inside a toolbar? You might think you could just add it inside the toolbar like this, so I'll do tab layout, and then match parent for the width and wrap content. But that's going to kind of overlap things. It's going to overlap the image view and the app name. You can see there we end up with a bit of a mess. The simple material toolbar, which is just a view group, isn't a very good container to put it in. So we'll delete it for now from the toolbar. That's going to be no good. So what can we do? Well, there's a very useful container for toolbars, and it's a thing called an app bar layout. If I just go ahead and put one in, app bar layout, like that, the material one, and we'll do width, match parent, and height wrap content. Just need to constrain it to the top as normal, so top to the top of the parent, like that. If I control click on this, well, this is a special view group that just extends linear layout. We can scroll up above the class to see some notes about it. App bar layout is a vertical linear layout, which implements many of the features of Material Design's app bar concepts, and these include scrolling gestures. We're not going to worry about the scrolling gestures now. However, if you have a little play yourself in the Google Tasks app and you try scrolling up and scrolling down, you'll see it does some fancy things where the app title and the account button disappears, and then the tabs move to the top of the screen, and vice versa. App bar layouts can do some quite fancy things with these scrolling gestures, and later in this section we are going to have a play with those. We're not going to explain them in this tutorial. We're just going to use it as a nice container, a nice place for our app bar at the top of the screen to put both the toolbar and the tabs and have it all contained together. So right now we just care about the fact that it's a vertical linear layout, which will be ideal for our tab layout being under our toolbar, and that it follows the Material Design. That's what we're going to use it for now. We'll worry about the scrolling later. So I'll close this class down. So first of all, we can collapse the toolbar tag with this little minus arrow. Quick and easy way to copy all of it like that. And then I'll cut and paste. And then I'll click the three dots to expand it again. So we've got our toolbar inside the app bar layout. And then directly underneath the toolbar, now we can add our tab layout. Tab layout there, match parent wrap content, self-closing tag. And then if I click off, you can see now we have the underline of our tab layout. And this structure, the app title, the account button, and then space for our tabs with the drop shadow, the line, this is now already quite similar to the Google Tasks app. So we're already off to a good start for getting the basic skeleton of our app sorted in the layout files. I'll be sure to give the tab layout an ID. These can be our tabs. And the last thing we can do is add our view pager 2, so we're ready to start fleshing that out in code. So view pager 2, and this will set to match content for the width, but height will do 0 dp, like that. And then we need to pin the top to be underneath this app bar layout. So we'll need an ID for the app bar layout. So ID app bar layout. Actually, just app bar will be fine. So app bar. So now we can do the top to the bottom of the app bar, but then the bottom to the bottom of the screen, or parent rather. And now I can give it an ID of view pager, or even just pager will be fine, probably. Pager. And then if I look to the right and see where the blue outline is for my view pager, I can see it's nicely pinned to the bottom of the whole app bar, but then goes to the bottom of the screen. So using an app bar layout is a pretty useful way to stack things in your toolbar, or the app bar rather. You can have the standard toolbar and then other things, and you can contain it all nicely within this app bar layout, which is a fancy vertical linear layout. And later we'll see some of the nice scrolling effects it can give us. Okay, so app bar layout, we have our tab layout, we have our view pager. We can now head over to our code and start to flesh some of these things out. I'm now in main activity, and there's actually one thing that I forgot to do in the very short getting started section. Did you notice what it was? I'll just shift into the build.gradle file that's inside our app folder, that one there at the top. Well, I forgot to enable view binding. So underneath the build types block, I'll make a new block for build features, curly brackets, and then view binding, set that equal to true. And then with a quick Gradle sync and heading back to main activity, we should have view binding available to us. So let's go ahead now and start setting up this screen. So we'll do a private later init var called our binding, and that will equal activity main binding. And then in the onCreate method, we can do the binding equal to activity main binding inflate, and then that's the layout inflator. And then we can set the content view to nice and easy. So there's a few things we need to do to get our simple view pager working with our first fragment. Well, the first thing we're going to need is a fragment for our default tasks fragment. We'll just have one tab for now. So let's go ahead and make this new fragment. So in the project pane, I'll jump to the main activity folder. In fact, I'll close everything else down. There we go. So right click, we'll make a new Kotlin file called tasks fragment, a class that extends fragment. We'll quickly make a layout file for this. So in the layout folder, new layout file. This can be fragment underscore tasks. In split mode, we'll just put a simple text view for now. saying this will be the tasks fragment. We'll center it in the screen by doing match constraints, so top to the top, bottom to the bottom. We'll pin all edges like that. You can see that jumps to vertically centered, and to the end. That should make it, yeah, fully centered. So now in the tasks fragment, nice and quickly, so our binding as always. Then on create view, on view created, I always add these two straight away when I'm working with fragments. We want to inflate our binding, so fragment task binding inflate, the 3 parameters, and then false, and then we can simply return binding.root. And then delete the nullable view. Okay, so that is all we need for our fragment for now, just as a placeholder. So back to main activity. So the first thing we need to do is set an adapter on the view pager before we do anything with the tabs. So we can create an inner class for our pager adapter. So inner class, and rather than copying the code, we'll try and do this from scratch, see how much we remember. Don't worry if you don't remember it. This will be a nice test for me though. So I'll just call this the pager adapter. Doesn't matter what you call it, but we want to pass in an instance of a fragment activity. So we'll just say the activity fragment activity, and then this needs to extend or implement fragment state adapter. Then we pass in that activity, then curly brackets, and then we'll have a couple of methods to implement. I can actually use the error, so Alt Enter, implement the members. So it's the get item count and the create fragment that we need. Those two methods there. I'll make the item count just 1 for now, so nice and easy. Function expression, item count can be 1. And then create fragment, we can just simply return, for now, a new instance of our tasks fragment. Nice and simple. A bit like our recycle view adapters, but actually a lot easier, a lot simpler. Not much code at all there. So now on our view pager, or our pager rather, a bit of item count can be item count and the create fragment. We can just simply return, for now, a new instance of our tasks fragment. Nice and simple. A bit like our recycle view adapters, but actually a lot easier, a lot simpler, not much code at all there. So now on our view pager, or our pager rather, we can set the adapter to be equal to a new pager adapter. Nice and easy, passing in the activity, this, and now we can set out our tab mediator. So tab, layout mediator, then brackets, and then we need to give it two properties, the tab layout itself, so binding.tabs, then the pager, binding.pager, and then we can do the curly brackets, and there's a couple of parameters there. It is the tab itself and the position we are at, or the position of the tab rather. So there'll be a tab for every item count we've specified there, and we can set each tab right here. But we only have one tab for now, so we can simply do tab.text equals tasks for now. Okay, I've flown through that. That's all recap from the challenge section. I'm just trying to show how little code it really is to create a pager adapter, to set it on your view pager, and then to tie both the tab layout and the pager together with this tab layout mediator. I've almost forgot to do one thing. After the curly bracket, you do dot, and then it's attach. Without that, nothing would happen. And now we can run our project for the first time since doing any of these changes. Fingers crossed everything's going to work okay there. If not, it'll be good practice for debugging. But let's go ahead and run this. Okay. And we're looking good. We have our app bar layout, that fancy vertical linear layout with our toolbar, or our material toolbar rather, with our title centered and an image view inside it with the layout gravity at the end. So that's our material toolbar where my mouse is. Then we have our tab layout, and that's within the app bar. So these two things are contained together. And then we've set up our view pager and the tab layout. So we're displaying our first tab for tasks, and then we have our one instance of the tasks fragment. So this is a pretty good place to be. We're getting close to the point now of being able to actually add tasks and list our tasks. I just want to get the basic shell of the layout code done first before we dive into databases. One or two more things to do before we can do that. So let's keep going.